Hello and welcome back to Stillwater's Counseling's video series. My name is Charlotte Harrington, LLMSW. Today's video is a two-part series or mini-series on sensory input and processing. So my first question for you is, what do you think of when you hear the word sensory? If you're like most people, you think of the 5 most commonly known senses, which are sight, sound, taste, touch, as well as scent. But did you know there are actually 2 more lesser known senses? It's true. The first is vestibular, or vestibular system. This is also known as our balance center, and it helps us process information in charge of our movement, whether we are accelerating and speeding up or decelerating and speeding down. This is all taken care of by our vestibular system. Also, proprioception, or body position in space, is our 7th and final sense. This is also something we can call body awareness, or where our parts of our body are in relation to other parts. This place and sense actually also controls how much force we are required to use when accomplishing a task. For example, if I was to hammer a nail into a wall, I may want to use a lot of force. But if I was to pick up a newborn kitten, I would use a tiny amount of force. So that is your proprioceptive sense that helps you control and understand how much force to use and all of that. So when we think about sensory processing, we're actually just thinking about how we take information in and make sense of our surroundings. So why am I telling you all of this? Maybe you're watching this video as a parent or caregiver, and you want to better understand some of your child's behaviors and why they are doing the things they are doing. A lot of times it may be sensory seeking or avoiding. So there are 2 ways in which sensory input may not be quite going as typically or as normally for your child as you may think. They may be experiencing oversensitivity or avoiding, or undersensitivity and seeking. What do I mean by that? I like to use the analogy or example of, it's like we're watching a playground. You see one child running, crashing, and grabbing and slamming into his or her or their peers, and maybe this child is just grabbing everything. And there's another child staying a bit further away from the commotion, covering their ears and turning away. This is a great example of both undersensitivity and oversensitivity to stimuli in our sensory environment. The environment is very similar, but both children are reacting in very different ways based on their needs. The child who's oversensitive is trying really, really hard to avoid input, and the child who's undersensitive feels they have a deficit, and they are trying to seek it out by crashing and grabbing. It's interesting how one child's sensory needs may be the opposite of another child's. And if you've ever been in a preschool classroom like I have and taught there for 5 years, it doesn't always create the most peaceful environment. So it's important to understand this and to help both sets of children meet their needs simultaneously in the same environment. This may be also true in your home if you have multiple children and they have different sensory needs. So I think the more you understand, the better you can help support and help your child. And there are many, many ways to do this. So in the beginning of today's video, we're going to delve into the start of my list, and then next week we will end and finish and talk a little bit more. The most important thing, and number 1, is for you to try to be patient with yourself and your child. This is a learning process, and no one's going to learn everything overnight, and no one's going to be perfect at it. But the fact that you are committed to learning a bit more about your child's sensory needs is a really great, wonderful first step. Number 2, you can begin to just observe your child. Notice what they gravitate to in their sensory environment. Do they love to smell things and just walk around and sniff that old bottle of vanilla extract that they got out of the recycling bin? Or do they say, "What stinks?" when in reality, you're not really smelling much, but their sensory needs they're overstimulated and something really does smell really strong to them. It's also something you could notice and say, I'm noticing they're gravitating toward this type of movement, or I notice that they're moving away from it. The more you can understand and observe, the better you're going to be able to support your child. Please be sure to continue to tune in for next week's video on more tips to support your child's sensory needs. Thank you for watching our video, and be sure to leave us a comment. We'll see you next time. Bye.